Hello, beautiful butterflies. So I'm back. How was the testing? So in my last video where I talked about my non-epileptic seizures, I told you that the first line of testing is a EEG, where they put the electrodes on your scalp and they do different things like light stimulation, hyperventilation to trigger a seizure, and then they can look on their computer and see if they see any signs of epilepsy. So I did that last year in November, and that came out clear. So the second testing is, once they find out that was clear, is video EEG, which is the same as the EEG, but it's longer, and they record you while you're having your seizures. So I went into the hospital for observation on Thursday, and they set you up. There's a camera in the room that is on you, and then they put the leads back in, and they put an even stronger glue so that it can withhold it being on you longer, because the regular EEG is maybe like, I don't know, between maybe like a half an hour, like the whole testing, but the video EEG, 24 hours or longer. And my biggest concern was how long I was going to be there, and the woman told me that the longer you stay is if there's complications or if you don't have a seizure. So if it takes a while for you to have a seizure, then you're in there longer. So I remember I was geared up in my mind of all the things that I know that could bring them on. Because like I said, the main purpose is for them to be able to see the seizures live, as well as see the brain activity. And so I know caffeine is a huge trigger for me, like I told you guys. So I thought I would have to get that ready, but man, I must have been primed, or I guess anxious about the test a little bit. And I was able to have one the day I went in. I was checked in the afternoon, and maybe like an hour or two later, I had my first episode. Now, when I have them, this is one of the things I'm thankful for with my seizures. It's not fun to have them, but I am thankful they're not epileptic, in the fact that I'm not just walking and it happens and I fall and hurt myself. Similar to those who have migraines, I also feel when it's about to come on. I feel faint. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I feel very weak. So I was talking to my mom on the phone, and I was telling her, I was like, Mom, I think I'm gonna have one, so I'm gonna call you back. And when you're there, you're supposed to let the nurse know when you have one. Now, when I first got there and they gave me the rules, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be on lockdown. Because I mean, clearly you have this, all the leads on, and it's kind of like, it doesn't allow you that much movement. And when you have seizures, you are a fall risk. So I had to pretty much stay in my bed. If I needed to go to the bathroom, I needed to call them. And definitely when I felt a seizure come on, I had to call them. So I felt the seizure coming on. Mind you, the nurse was there about to put an IV in for me. Because they still weren't sure, they wanted to have something open in case I needed any medication. So she's putting it in, and I told her, I was like, I think you need to press the record button now because it's about to happen. So she said, okay. And I felt bad for her because, when you get an IV, you need to keep your arm a certain way. But when I'm about to have one, like, everything just goes limp. So she managed to get the IV in, but like I said, I started to have my seizure, and they were able to record it. When I have these seizures, I hear everything that's going on, but I'm not able to respond. And honestly, that can be so frustrating, because I told the nurse that, but she was still calling my name and trying to communicate with me. She was like pinching me, and I felt bad because, like I said, I couldn't respond. So I would say that one lasted maybe like 20 minutes from the start to the end, because I kind of went in and out, where she thought I was done, but I wasn't. My eyes roll back. I look like I'm having a seizure, but like an epileptic seizure, let's put it that way. Even though a seizure is a seizure, right? No matter what the cause, as I learned. So that was the first one of the day, but afterwards I was fine. I was glad I didn't need any coffee or anything to bring it on. And I did have a second one later on that night around 9. And what was crazy is that for this one, I tried to call the nurses and they didn't get back to me right away. So I was like thinking in my head, I hope it actually, I found out later the camera was recording at all times, but I guess they want to have like a start off where, you know, and I found out afterwards that I had the button right next to me to press to kind of like alert them that this is a beginning of a seizure. Because, you know, when you're being monitored for that long, it's kind of nice to have a marker like, okay, it happened at this time instead of have to watch the whole thing. So the hardest part of my experience with the testing was not the seizures themselves, it was the staff. And it wasn't the whole time. I had two really great nurses in the beginning, and I, you know, you guys saw me, I felt, you know, positive. I was like, I know that this test was basically to confirm that there is still no epilepsy. Nurses and the staff, I find, can make your experience better or worse. And the majority of them were awesome, but I had one nurse that she wasn't horrible, but she was not helpful, let's say that. So I had the seizure and, you know, it recorded, but then she came like after. And you know when, like, even if you're at a restaurant and you're trying to ask somebody to help you with something, but you feel like you're annoying them, even though that's their job to get something for you? That's what it felt like. You know, I would do the call button, yes. I'm like, okay, I'm about to have one. I need someone to come press record. No answer. And then also when after it's finished, she comes over and she's like, hey, and I'm like, yeah, I had an episode. And she's like, oh, wow, you should have called me. I'm like, I did. Oh, I didn't hear it. So that was really annoying. And then I don't know what was going on with my IV. I've had IVs before, but this was like really uncomfortable. And they did put it here, which is the most, you know, it's not the most comfortable space for it, but I was like, okay, I want to take it out. The very first seizure that I had, the doctor came in and he actually saw that it wasn't epileptic. So he told the nurse she doesn't need any medication because, you know, that wasn't the cause of it. So I was happy that he was there at that time so she didn't give me medication unnecessarily. So I was trying to talk to this nurse about taking out the IV, and she's like, oh no, we can't do that. It has to stay there. And so this experience taught me how much I have to continue to speak up, because I did, and there was another nurse there, or I guess a CPA, who was taking my vitals, and she was really helpful. She's like, I get it, you're frustrated. Maybe I could talk to a nursing supervisor for you and find out if, you know, we could get a doctor's order and you could get it taken out. I'm gonna go tell your nurse. She goes, there was another nurse there, or I guess a CPA, who was taking my vitals, and she was really helpful. She's like, I get it, you're frustrated. Maybe I could talk to a nursing supervisor for you and find out if, you know, we could get a doctor's order and you could get it taken out. I'm gonna go tell your nurse. She goes, tells the nurse. My nurse comes in and she's like, I called the doctor. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? And she's like, I called the doctor, he'll call me back. And I was like, okay. So then not even 5 minutes later, she comes and takes out the IV. And I was just like, mind you, this was 4 a.m. So I'm thinking to myself, if I didn't continue to ask or I didn't talk to this other nurse, that wouldn't have happened. She made it seem like it was an impossibility. I had to go through all this paperwork. All she had to do was call the doctor and ask, can she have it taken out? So that really frustrated me because it made it difficult for me to sleep. I mean, let's also be real. Being in a hospital is not a place for rest. There's noises. I was in a room with another patient who was having some difficulty. So that also didn't make it the most great environment to sleep. And sleep deprivation is also something that they use to bring on the seizures. But they had planned that for me for Friday, but I already got a head start. So 4 a.m., took out the IV, and I think I was just so aggravated from that whole experience. I almost was going to tell her not to take it out because, you know, when someone has an attitude, it's like, I don't need you near my really great areas here. But anyway, so then I thought that, okay, after this, I can go to sleep. but that was just only one of the things that affected me being able to rest. And so I pretty much did not sleep. I pretty much had a whole day from the time I came in to the next morning because I couldn't wait. I was like, you know what? I'm out of here, because they told me that they wouldn't keep me longer so that I could have more attacks. If they got enough and it was recorded, I'd be able to be released. So I was counting down until I could see the doctor, and they told me they make their rounds sometimes around 6. So I was sitting there looking at the clock, waiting. And I also, so after this nurse takes out that IV, right, I don't hear from her again. Mind you, I have to call them if I have to go to the bathroom. And it was just like, I didn't hear from her at all till I didn't even see her leave. So the morning nurse that I got was awesome. Now, I call them again. I guess when they go through the rounds or they switch, I know that, you know, they have to update one another. But my roommate next to me was having an emergency where her oxygen was going down. And so it was crazy because I was trying to get in contact with my new nurse, let her know what's going on, tell her I want to talk to the doctor, I would like to be discharged. But all of that got delayed because, you know, my roommate was in an emergency. But the nurse was so nice to look back to me and say, hey, this is my name, you know, I'm going to get to you soon. Mind you, I had another seizure at 7 in the morning. So, which again was from not being able to sleep. I pretty much near my window saw the sun go down and the sun come up. And and then my roommate next to me might be crashing, might be dying. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening right now. So it's just like really, really stressful. But in the end, it turned out fine because I was able to talk to them. And at first she was kind of like, oh, we'll have to wait till the doctor comes. And I'm like, I'm not waiting for no doctor. I called the doctor's office who scheduled my EEG, and I said, look, I'm ready to go. I gave you guys 3 awesome seizures that you can look at. You know, pretty much from what one of the doctors told me, there was no epilepsy found. So we're still in the non-epileptic area. I don't need to stay any longer. And just being in the hospital, I really feel for those who have to be there on an extended amount of time, because it is nothing like home, and it's nothing like, I don't know. It just was not the most pleasant. So I called them, and they called the doctor who was on the rounds for me. He called me and told me, okay, how's everything going? Okay, you got we'll discharge you today. So I was really happy, and it showed me how much work I had to do on my part in order to put fire under them so that they could get it done. So I was able to be discharged by 11 before the regular time, which I was happy about. And we were able to still, my husband picked me up, and we were able to still get my son, because that was another thing. Where the hospital was at least a half an hour away from where his school was. So I wanted to make sure the timing worked out. But the nurse was really nice. She sat down and she spoke with me. She apologized for, you know, what she could tell. She said even herself, sometimes it's frustrating for her coming on at 7 and she's getting the aftermath of what was or wasn't done in the evening. So I want to say to any of you out there who are nurses, I appreciate you, because it is not an easy job. I actually went to school for nursing, and I made it up to my first year of clinicals, but because that was when my health started to, my health conditions started to present themselves. I also have fibromyalgia that, I could tell you guys more about that in another video. But basically, I give it to you nurses, and I appreciate you, but it's similar to anybody in any kind of service with others. There are those who still qualify, but then like they just don't have the inner of what it takes to deal with others. So the nurse I had in the morning was awesome. The one who took out my leads was awesome, because I was so nervous. I told you guys, you know, my hair has conditioner in it right now, Jessie Curl conditioner. I came home, I was so exhausted, and I just went to sleep, and I was able to at least wash my hair. And I was so nervous about the application. The girl who put the leads in my hair nicely, you know, I didn't even need the big tooth comb. She handled it well. And then to take them off, they just like soak my hair in oil and they came off right away. So it's kind of like I got a hot oil treatment. She gave me a little massage. So that worked out with that also. And like I said, I have conditioner. My hair, I thought it would be like really tangled and knotted. If I stayed there longer, it probably would have been, but I'm happy to be home, and I have a follow-up appointment with my neurologist to find out what happens next. Where do we go from here now that it is fully confirmed it is non-epileptic seizures? And to be honest with you, what I've learned from these seizures is that I always compare them to like a surge protector, like with plugs. And it really is a reminder to me if I'm stressing too much, whether it be physical, if I'm tired and I need rest, whether I'm in pain, or mental stress, beating myself up, anxiety, worrying about things I don't need to worry about. It really is like, you need to chill. And when I don't listen, it literally takes over. So I'm in that sense, it has been helpful to me to give me an idea of where I need to make more self-care, whether it be physical or emotional, which I feel it's very easy to focus on the physical, which has a really big place, but I know definitely with these seizures, it's a mental, emotional self-care regularly that I can do to help them to not be as frequent. I had 3 in the span of maybe 12 hours, and that was a lot. You know, I was really tiring, but when I was able to go home and rest, again, it showed me that I really just need to take better care of myself. So again, thank you to all of you who took the time to even listen to my experience and find out what happened and show your support. I appreciate you. And until my next update, I'll talk to you guys later.